Salmon of knowledge, it's a 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 salmon of knowledge podcast. It's hot in the kitchen tonight. And today, I'm gonna roast me a chicken in this hot kitchen tonight. I'll pass out, but I don't care, 'cause I really want a chicken. I want it now. I'm gonna roast a chicken till the juices run clear. You know that I want it. I'm gonna cook it good. I'm gonna stick my thermometer in. Make sure that it's hot, ready to eat. I love my chicken. That's my treat. Hot chicken, hot roast chicken tonight from the kitchen. Hey, Sammon Skins. Welcome to episode 42, where I am singing about things that have happened today. Myself and Cara had a nice roast chicken. Not like a roast chicken dinner. We didn't have all the trimmings. We had just like a roast chicken with salad. But we just really wanted that roast chicken, that corn-fed roast chicken. I don't know if it's not free range, so it's probably cruel. But it's like fed corn. But it's, doesn't have much room to move around. But it gets nice food. It's kind of like if you went to a Michelin star restaurant and they put you in stocks and just kind of give you a trough of really delicious food. You have to kind of lean in, just move things across with your nose, and then get like the nice choice bits of food. And you're like, oh, this is really, really good. I mean, my wrists are starting to kind of bleed, and I'm getting splinters in my hands, but my neck is quite sore. But I'm really enjoying this duck à l'orange with a red wine jus and a foam reduction, or whatever they have. I say whatever they have. I mean, I watch MasterChef. I love those shows. But that's what we're doing. The weather's hot. It's hot, baby. It's what they call an Indian summer. Although it's probably not called an Indian summer anymore, because Indian is the wrong phrase to use. I think that's connected to the Native American Indians, but you can't call them Indians because they're not fucking Indians. They landed looking for India. They thought they were in India, and they went, "You're Indians, right?" And the Indians were like, "No," even though we were just mentioned it as Indians in Edwin recalling the story. And they were like, "Well, for convenience sake, let's just call you Indians, even though you're not, because we need to call you something. And you don't have traditional names or clothes." Anyway, Jones some shiny beads for everything. And yeah, and there you go. And now you have America. Recently they changed it to Native Americans. But again, that doesn't really describe them, because they're not Americans. Like, Americans are people who came from Europe, from England, from Holland, and Spain, etc., and settled in the New World, as it was known. New World, that's fine. That's, an easy enough description. That makes sense. But you can't call them New Americans, because they're not Americans. They're the people who were there before Americans. The Americans were the people from Europe who settled and then went, okay, this is America, we're Americans, you guys are the first Americans. And no, we're not the first Americans. We were never Americans in the first place. It's kind of like that old who shot first, Han Solo or Greedo. Well, Han didn't shoot first, he just shot. It wasn't like a, quickest on the draw thing. It wasn't a standoff. It was just bang. Surprise, you're dead. I don't know why I'm telling you this, because you're dead. Some news, I'm doing a gig tomorrow, as you're listening to this. If you're listening to this on Friday, the 18th of September or whatever the hell it is, then I'm doing it tomorrow. If you're not listening to it on the Friday that it's released, then forget I said anything. It's done. It's in the past. How did it go? I don't know. I tell you what I'll do. I will record the entire gig, if that's possible. I'll bring my recording machine down there and I'll record the whole gig. I'll put up a little bit of it on next week's pod. And if you're a Patreon, I'll put up the whole dang show. And you can listen to the whole dang thing, warts and all. I'll put up like a little couple of minutes, a little sort of highlight reel, and we'll see how it goes. It's going to be an outdoor gig in Athenry. It doesn't flout the or break the rules of the new COVID restrictions that have come in, or COVID, if you're not from the country. Which Dublin's in lockdown again. Basically, you can't leave Dublin except for work, which is what I'm doing. I'm going to work. I'm also going to hospital on Monday to have my annual colonoscopy, because I won't let this global pandemic stop me from enjoying the simple pleasures in life, like a thorough and deep colonoscopy, because that's what I want, and that's what I'm going to get. And you're not going to stop me, Mr. Government Man. Johnny Government, always wanting to stop everyone. So, people are obviously kind of losing their minds a little bit on Twitter, which is where discourse goes to die. And some people are, I get it. I get that people are like, why can we go to a pub, but we can't go to a theatre? Because I agree with that. As I said last week, I think all the pubs should be opened. Just give people somewhere to go rather than each other's houses and spread it around. Go to a pub, be there for, an hour and a half or whatever it is. Myself and Cara went for a lovely meal the other night to celebrate our anniversary. And we were there for an hour and a half, and we left promptly before anyone asked us to leave, because we were raised right. But people are just losing their shit a little bit. Someone tweeted, at Gigged Ireland. So I guess this is someone who is in favour of venues opening and people being able to go back to gigs and such. So this from 2 hours ago, after the Dublin lockdown was announced, which I think is happening for 3 weeks. So this is hashtag back to TWO Skewl, SKEWL, the Dublin north side spelling of school. Skewl. Of course, Skewl is where children go to read their books. BUKES. So here's what he tweeted. So our kids will now be stopped from playing sport, vital for physical and mental health, and instead they can pop into the pub for 105 minutes sitting beside bunches of strangers. I've been very compliant with it all to date. You're losing me now, though. You're losing me. So a few things with this at Gigged Ireland. I mean, look, I agree with you. If you're playing sport, and it's kids playing sport, they're not as vulnerable. Everyone's outside. People, sports venues and pitches are big things, because I know this because they're often used as a unit of measurement. It's like, I had so many pints the other night. How many pints did you have? I had about 4 hurling pitches full of pints. So yeah, it seems to be not a no-brainer, but it seems to be an obvious enough thing to have. You're outside. The gig I'm doing in Galway, in Athenry, is an outdoor gig, and people are going to be distant from each other. So, it's fine as long as you're within the parameters and within the rules of all these things. But stopping kids from playing sport, vital for physical and mental health, I don't really agree with that, because if you are a child who does not enjoy sporting activities per se, like I used to be. When I was a kid, I was never really that much of a sporty type. I played sports, but I wasn't that good at it. And the problem is that when you play sports when you're a child, you are subjected to really extreme and instant criticism, where I'd be playing football and I'd make a mistake and then I'd be moved back. So I'd be like in the forwards and then we'd move back to midfield and then I'd be moved back to defence. And then if I made some mistakes back there, they'd put me back in goals, which from a coaching perspective doesn't make any sense at all, because if I'm that bad, you don't really want me as the last line of defence. I'm going to be terrible. So it was just a lot of shouting, and these are just, some of these games are just challenge games and whatever, but people are losing their minds like it's the fucking World Cup final. And I like to play sports for fun. I just don't like the competition aspect of it. I just, it's supposed to be for fun, but there is this narrative of if you win, it's great. If you lose, no one cares. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's a very good... It definitely was not vital for my physical and mental health. Not playing sports was, like going for a walk up a hill or running around a forest pretending to be Conan the Barbarian with my brother. Like, that was physical and mental exercise, because we're running around, swinging things, running up trees, etc., and pretending to be barbarians. So we were kind of getting out of our own mindset. So that was a form of meditation. Vital for physical and mental health. Like, I've never, that's like saying a big, loud, shouty football match is as good for your mental health as a half an hour of meditation or yoga. And I don't think that's true. Anyway, guys, that's enough of that for now. Let's take a break, and we'll be back after these messages. And we're back, guys. So, listen, I have been asked to review something for 2FM, and we're going to be looking at things that people love that are maybe a little bit questionable, or even in some cases, as I will argue in this case, a little bit shit. And I'm talking about the movie Twilight. Yes, Twilight, can you hear me complain about sexy vampires and the ride around? Yeah, it's terrible. I watched it last night. Cara had seen the movie. She had read the books as well, so she was telling me some things that are in the books that are not in the movie. So I was getting like a double dose of shit, like stereo shit. Very, very bad movie. Just not enjoyable, not sexy, not intriguing. Just, I can imagine the books are just as bad. I know they started off as 50 Shades of Grey fan fiction, erotic fan fiction. So, like, what if Christian Grey was a vampire? I think, or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I've seen that movie because I had to review it for a podcast that I couldn't actually do in the end. It was like an Oscars podcast. It had been nominated for Best Original Song. So I had to watch the entire movie and then listen to the song to determine whether the song was an Oscar-worthy accompaniment to the movie. And you know what? It wasn't. But that's a story for another time. Twilight. Like, very much sexy vampires was a thing. It's kind of not really. I think Twilight kind of maybe killed it off. It sort of was the last series of movies to cash in on the sexy vampire craze and simultaneously kill it off. It kind of is like a really shit, boring, depressing version of The Lost Boys. Like, Lost Boys is of its time. It's very 80s, but it's kind of funny, scary, romantic, adventure movie, which is very enjoyable. And it opens with this family moving to this sunny seaside town, whereas Twilight starts with what's her name, Kirsten Stewart. And you say Kirsten Vig, but no, that would have made it more interesting. She's probably too old to play. Well, I suppose even in whenever it was made, 2008. But anyway, so Kristen Stewart moves from sunny Phoenix, Arizona, to this shitty little town in Washington State where it constantly rains and it's dull and grey. And the whole movie is just dull and grey. Like, it's this really, it looks like a sort of a Xbox One first-person shooter set in a, grey future world where it's just shitty looking all the time. It's just got this really terrible palette to it. I mean, obviously, all the vampires are sort of sexy and pale, but they look like Marks and Spencer's brand clothes models. They're sexy, but there's a cap on their sexiness. They're not as sexy as I think the movie thinks that they are. And, there's just a lot of stuff in it that I just didn't like. I didn't feel any kind of chemistry from the two leads, from Robert Pattinson, who is now Batman, and Kristen Stewart, who most recently was in the new Charlie's Angels movie. I don't think they're making any sequels. But and I know they went out with each other, but I just don't see any kind of chemistry at all. And it's funny. I mean, sometimes you get that in movies where couples who are like going at it hammer and indeed tongs offset, but that chemistry doesn't seem to translate to the actual movie itself. And this is one of those examples where they're so, like, there's no sparks that fly between them. And there kind of has to be almost like an instant sort of spark between them. But the first time Edward sees her, he just stares at her for an entire science class. And it looks like he's just being a creepy man staring at her. But like, he wants to eat her because he's a vampire, and she doesn't know that. She's just like, this guy's staring at me. And she knows him for 3 days, and then an incident happens where she nearly gets crushed by a car, and he rushes over and like pushes back the car with his superhuman strength. So for a while she thinks he's Superman, and she's like, in the hospital, she's like, I saw you do that. And he's just, no, he didn't. And she's like, no, I did. You came over so quickly. And he said, no, I was standing right beside you the whole time. And he's just trying to gaslight her. And eventually he goes, yeah, I'm a vampire. Or he gets her to say it, you're a vampire. And he's like, yeah. And then she's like, I love you, completely and completely and utterly, I love you. And I'm like, what? How? Why? Which? And other questions as well. After 3 days, you barely know someone. You can be with someone for 6 months and you mightn't even get to know them. They could have a second family in Phoenix, Arizona that you don't even know about. And it's just the worst. And there's like some of it I don't understand. I don't understand the basics of the plot, and apparently it's explained in the sequels. I think in the sequel books it's explained, where Edward Cullen, as it turns out, and I had to look this up because he doesn't say it in the movie, he's like 108 years old. He's been a vampire for 108 years. He actually became a vampire during the Spanish influenza. So maybe this COVID-19 influenza of 2020 will give birth to another sexy vampire. But I doubt it. I mean, he's not even that sexy. He just looks like a big lantern with a lot of hair. And like I said, he's very pale. And there's this weird thing where vampires, like they're going around in the middle of the day, and I'm like, okay, like sunlight kills them. I guess it must be direct sunlight. And there's a scene in it where he's like, here, I'll show you how I look like really. you want to see the true face of me? And I'm like, all right, now we're going to get some scary Evil Dead style Rob Bottin type prosthetics. He's going to look like freaky. Maybe his jaw will dislocate like those freaky vampires in Blade 2. But no, he stands in the sunlight and his skin just kind of glistens like, diamonds. His skin looks like the interior of a Claire's accessories. And I'm going, right, so that's not scary. And then he says everything about me is designed to lure you in. Diamond skin, my voice, my look. And I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense, because as I understand it in vampire lore, you have to be bitten by a vampire and not killed. I think in this movie they give venom. They inject venom into you to turn you into a vampire, and they suck a bit of your blood and they kind of mix the venom in with your blood, and then they have to stop. And it's like almost impossible for a vampire to stop sucking the blood of a victim once he's begun sucking the blood of a victim. It's like how it's almost impossible if you're having sex and you're on your vinegar strokes. It's almost impossible to just pull out. You just kind of, every fibre of your being is saying, continue doing this until you are satisfied and complete. But so self-restraint is a big thing with the vampires. And the Cullens are all vegetarians. The Cullen clan, they're all vegetarians. So they just eat animals and they don't eat humans. Or at least they try not to. I mean, obviously they're tempted, but they try not to. And they're all living in the same house. They're all very, very sexy. There's no vampire that looks like Danny DeVito. And I was saying this to Cara, I was like, well, what happens if someone like Danny DeVito is infected and becomes a vampire? And her answer was, well, then he just becomes the most alluring Danny DeVito you've ever met in your life, an irresistible Danny DeVito. And I thought, okay, well, I guess that makes sense, but it still doesn't solve his kind of small. Now, I'm not having a go on Danny DeVito. I'm just picking someone who is of a completely different body type and facial type as Robert Pattinson. Honestly, I think Danny DeVito, it was probably a bad choice because he's actually kind of cute. When he was young, he's adorable. He's like a little puppy, like in Twins. He's just cute. He's got lovely eyes, lovely smile. He seems like a kind, funny man. He'd make you laugh every day, but he's not like tall and sexy and moody. So he's never going to be tall. Like being a vampire is not going to suddenly add 3 feet to him. But hey, who knows? Maybe he's a sexy vampire. A couple of things that I didn't understand as well about these Cullens I sound like some sort of Irish farmer giving out about some lad for letting in his cows in the top field when he knows it's not his field. Those fucking Cullens are at it again, going round, eating cows. Well, at least they haven't killed any of us. But those are my cows. Those cows are my family, etc. But yeah, the Cullens, his quote-unquote father, for all intents and purposes, not his father, but he's the vampire who made him a vampire, because he was a doctor during the influenza, and he's a doctor in this Twilight movie, working in a modern hospital. He's been a doctor for over 100 years, and that seems to me like an alcoholic getting a job in a brewery. It just doesn't make any sense, because he's going to be surrounded by blood. He's going to have access to the blood bank. Can he be trusted? Can he trust himself? What happens if there's a massive 4-car collision and there's like 4 or 6 people and they're all in and they're all with open wounds and blood everywhere? Like, what the hell does he... Unless he's one of these guys that, after a failed surgery or something, he'll go, all right, I'll clean up. by myself. Don't worry about that. I'll mop up all this blood and it'll be grand. Don't worry about it. And then he comes out and he's all like, you're lovely. Like, are you okay? Yeah. Oh yeah. I just had a white chocolate and lemon muffin, and boy was that nice. Yum, 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 yum. Twilight, can you hear me complain about vampires' pain? I'm on the Twilight. I mean, like the one thing I didn't understand. Well, I mean, apart from that, the other thing that I didn't understand was Edward Cullen. He's like been 18 years old for 108 years. They've been living in this town permanently for a while. One of them's working as a doctor, and like the rest of them are going to school. But like, how long have they been going to school? Because they're eternally young. So, you know, and there's a bit where Bella is in the Cullen's house and there's like a frame thing and it's all the motorboards from all the graduations because he's graduated about 50 times. And my question is, why? Why the fuck would you graduate 50 times from high school? I mean, the teachers would notice that, you know, you keep coming back every year and you're not in disguise. And also, if you're immortal and you can do anything and time is, you know, there's no end to time for you. Like, you know, you don't have to go to school at all. You can just casually just read books over centuries and you'll pick it up. You'll pick up how, you know, a V-shaped valley is formed, or you'll pick up, you know, the process of osmosis or whatever. A few sonnets here and there, a bit of a play, a bit of Shakespeare. You know, you'll pick it up. Bit by bit, you'll pick it up. You don't have to attend high school constantly for 50 years, because that's like, I mean, and they don't even, like, there's not even a reference to it. There's not even it's like, yeah, I just, you know, there's all my motorboards from graduating. And she doesn't go, well, how the fuck can you get away with that? I mean, the teachers, is there no one suspicious of this? And also, like, you know, I don't know. So a lion falls in love with a lamb, which is a line from the movie, which was in the book and is just a fucking terrible line. And the other thing as well is they hunt. Now, they describe humans as humans, which means that they're not humans, even though in this movie it climaxes in like a hall of mirrors. Not a hall of mirrors, it's like a ballet studio that Kirsten Stewart's character Bella used to go to when she was younger, which makes no fucking sense because she's as awkward as a bag of hammers and she's just fallen all over the place and she does so much sighing and complaining, and there's some really bad little kind of acting bits here and there. I don't think anyone's that good in the movie. I'm not convinced that she's a particular good actor. Pattison, I think, is, you know, he's done some interesting work to try and get away from Twilight, but obviously, you know, it made him a lot of money and then he kind of disowned it afterwards, which is like, I guess, him trying to be cool. Like if your friend, you know, went to the opera and then was like, oh yeah, I mean, like, all the cool big dick boys go to the opera. It's kind of like he's sort of he's overreaching. He's trying too hard to be cool and distance himself from the Twilight. You fucking made it, man. Just relax. No one's beating you up over it. But yeah, there's like a bit where she gets on his back and he like scampers up a big tree like a squirrel, and jumps from tree to tree. And I'm like, yeah, I suppose if you're into your boyfriend being like a squirrel and squirreling around with you, that's cool. And at the start of the movie, you see like someone, I'm guessing it's Edward Cullen, chasing a deer through a forest. And I was just thinking, well, why can't they just get a job in a meat factory, you know? Like, you don't have to run around and hunt, and then you can, you know, earn some money and have a bit of structure in your life. If you're immortal and time has no meaning, maybe that's kind of moot and wouldn't really work out. But like, I worked in a meat factory for like 6 months, and we made black puddings, or as it's known in the States, blood pudding. And that's a kind of an alarmist name. And it's only really called blood pudding, guys, because we make it with blood. And we made it with like dried blood. So, I mean, you can just work in a meat factory and just steal the blood. I mean, before I actually worked there, they used to make it with fresh pig's blood that used to come in a big tub, big kind of barrel thing where an actual person could fit in it. And that's what they used to do when it was some of the lads who worked there. And it was mostly lads. There were a few women worked there, but they didn't last that long. It was very much a sausage fest. A sausage factory, in fact. Pun most definitely intended. But when I worked there, just before I worked there, they used to use blood that was fresh, that came in from a supplier's, and it was cold pig's blood. And people who, it was their last day, they'd play a hilarious prank on them, which now would be considered, and then as well would be considered, workplace harassment, bullying. But then it was their last day, so they really couldn't do anything. But like, sometimes lads would be upended and dunked in pig's blood, which is just terrible. But then we got the old dried blood in. So like the Cullens could just order dried blood and just say, oh, we make our own blood sausage in the basement. We have a grinder and we've got some skins for the sausages. We make our own blood sausage. That's it. But then, they can just have dried blood and just use it like freeze-dried coffee and just be drinking cups of blood. Put a bit of hot water in it and then it's nice and warm. And just have like 17 cups of blood a day. He can have he can go, the father card can go into work in the hospital and have a big one, those big massive coffee cups, and just have it full up of blood and just be like sipping from that all day long. Stick it in the microwave, heat it up a little bit, it'd be fine. As long as no one says, oh, can I have a sip of your coffee? And they go, oh, blood. And then they'll say, oh, I'm on the blood diet. And then go, oh, what's that? Oh, a vampire friend of mine. Not me, a friend of mine who is a vampire, because they're real. Oh, shouldn't have said that they were real. Oh, well, I'll have to kill you now. I'll just pretend you're a deer, because I'm a vegetarian. Twilight, can you hear me complain about sexy vampires in the twilight? So, guys, that's it for Twilight. And that's it for me for this week. Thank you for listening to my rant about Twilight. Next week, I'll probably have some clips from that gig. I hope it goes well. And also, I hope you are all well and safe and sound. And it's been nice talking to you and having you listen to me. I hope you've enjoyed me in your ears. And I'll see you next week. Bye bye bye. Bye 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 bye. Goodbye. See you now. Good luck now. Bye. Salmon of knowledge, it's the 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 salmon of knowledge podcast.